The greatest heist in human history didn't happen in a vault. It didn't involve masked men or high-speed chases. It happened in the dead of night on December 23rd, 1913, while the world was distracted by Christmas lights and family dinners. While you were sleeping, a group of men signed away your future. They created a system that would systematically strip the wealth from your pocket for the next century. Today, as we watch the 14 red flags of 2026 flash red, with the Buffett indicator hitting an insane 230% and consumer debt reaching $18 trillion, we are seeing the endgame of that silent night. This isn't just history. It is a financial trap that has been tightening for 112 years. Today, on Financial Historica, we unmask the 1913 Christmas heist, and we show you why the upcoming 2026 crash might be the final global Friday the 13th that resets it all. To understand how your wealth was stolen, we must go back to a private island off the coast of Georgia, Jekyll Island. In November 1910, a private train car left New Jersey under absolute secrecy. The passengers, representatives of J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, and the Rothschilds. They didn't go there for a vacation. They went there to craft a cartel. They knew that the American people hated the idea of a central bank controlled by private billionaires. So, they engaged in a masterclass of deception. They named their creation the Federal Reserve. It wasn't federal, and it had no reserves. It was a private banking syndicate given the ultimate power, the legal right to print the nation's currency and lend it back to the government at interest. But they had one final problem. They needed the law to pass, and the Senate was standing in their way. They needed a moment when no one was looking. They needed Christmas. The bankers waited for their moment with predatory patience. On December 23rd, 1913, while the most vocal opponents of the bill had already left Washington, D.C. to be with their families, the Federal Reserve Act was suddenly rushed to the floor. With a skeleton crew of senators remaining, the bill was passed and signed into law by President Woodrow Wilson on the same night. It was a surgical strike. Congressman Charles Lindbergh Sr. warned the nation that night, saying, "This act establishes the most gigantic trust on earth." He was right. By bypassing public scrutiny during the most distracted week of the year, they successfully transferred the power of the dollar from the people to a private boardroom. This was the birth of the modern debt trap. Every dollar printed since that night is a debt that must be paid back with interest that doesn't even exist yet. Once they had the printing press, the slow-motion heist began. We call it inflation, but in reality, it is the systematic devaluation of your labor. A single dollar from 1913 has lost 99% of its purchasing power today. The process reached its final, most dangerous stage in 1971. When President Nixon severed the final link between the dollar and gold, he turned our money into pure information, pure debt. This allowed the printing presses to run at a speed never seen in history. It created the massive bubbles we saw in 1929, 2008, and the one we are sitting on today. Every time they print money to save the economy, they are actually stealing the value of the savings in your bank account to pay for their mistakes. It is the invisible tax that has made a few families unimaginably wealthy, while the rest of the world works harder for less. Now, look at where this 100-year experiment has led us. The 14 red flags are no longer warnings. They are sirens. The Buffett indicator is at 230%, more than double its historical average. The Shiller-Cape ratio sits at 39, signaling a market more overvalued than almost any time in history. With $18 trillion in consumer debt and credit card interest rates at 22%, the average family is drowning. As our viewer Stefan brilliantly pointed out, the modern system is more resilient because it is global and decentralized. It's like a Fight Club scenario where the ledger is everywhere. But even a decentralized system cannot survive a mathematical impossibility. Between mid-2026 and late 2027, we are approaching a global Friday the 13th. The debt is too large to be paid, and the only way out for those in power might be a total systemic reset. They did it in 1307 with the Templars, they did it in 1913 with the Fed, and they might do it again in 2026. The lesson of the 1913 Christmas heist is simple. The biggest changes happen when you are looking the other way. But history also shows us that those who see the patterns can protect themselves. As we head into 2026, the question isn't whether the market will crash, but how you will survive the reset. Will you be a victim of the 112-year heist, or will you use this knowledge to shield your future? What do you think? Was the 1913 Federal Reserve Act a necessary step for a modern world, or was it the greatest crime of the century? Let's continue this discussion in the comments. This community's insights, like the global reset theory, are what make Financial Historica powerful. Don't forget to subscribe to stay ahead of the next red flag. Merry Christmas, and stay curious.